Although Scrabble is a universally recognized word game played by millions of people, the vast majority of players play just once in a while with family and friends and have never even heard of the game's competitive scene. Competitive Scrabble is actually a vibrant global community with players from 25 different countries ranked in the top 200 in English language play alone. At the Super Grandmaster level, the top 7 players hail from 7 different countries. On the other hand, when we zoom back out to the top 100 worldwide players, you'll see that something incredible has happened in competitive Scrabble. Nigeria is absolutely dominating. And the same goes for the next 100 players after that. A full third of the top 200 players in the world are Nigerian. How is that possible for a game invented and first sold in the US and the UK? How did Nigeria become Scrabble's strongest nation? There's only one way to start this story. In 2015, Nigerian Grandmaster Wellington won the World Scrabble Championship in Perth, Australia, establishing him as one of Scrabble's greatest players and the first ever African world champion. In a field replete with Scrabble superstars, including the legendary Nigel Richards, Wellington's dominance was comprehensive. In the main event, he finished 5 games ahead of Nigel and 3 ahead of everyone else aside from fellow finalist Lewis Mackay, a top expert from the UK. In the best of 7 finals, Wellington put forth a masterclass of top-level Scrabble. In Game 1, he cemented a win with a brilliant 2-turn sequence of Niqab through disconnected tiles holding 7 consonants, including a Q, followed up by the gorgeous Juliet with 4 overlaps. In Game 2, he landed a late bingo of Ersteds to take the lead, followed by a huge stroke of luck as Lewis had the obscure game-winning move of Kaylee's, but missed it and played Shield under duress, giving Wellington the win. In Game 3, Wellington landed a total of 4 bingos, including the 1-2 punch of Mentored and Adagial back-to-back to seal the game. And in Game 4, the massive 93-point quiz through his own bingo of Gainlear propelled him to a narrow win after an early deficit, giving him a 4-0 series sweep. These 4 finals games were incredible viewing for Scrabble fans worldwide, but even more so for his countrymen, who celebrated Wellington's landmark win as their own.
That was, indescribable. The feelings, among Nigerians. Because first thing, let me tell you, the Scrabble players in Nigeria didn't sleep. They were following the final, game for game. It's the first African, it's the first Nigerian, to win, which is a big deal.
And when he eventually won, I was there in Australia. We were singing and dancing openly. And back home in Nigeria, people were singing and dancing. It was like Nigeria did something fantastic. Even the president of the country wanted to speak with Wellington. So I had to take him to a pub. So they spoke on my phone. I had to get the president of Nigeria to speak to Wellington on my phone to congratulate him. So it was a national event. It was a thing of pride and glory.
He had the opportunity to meet the president of Nigeria. He went to the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
But Wellington's 2015 performance didn't just happen by chance. It was the culmination of over a decade of effort and adversity. His Scrabble career began in 2002 after having success in casual games with tournament veteran friends. From the outset, his peers in Nigeria saw something special.
I went to Nigeria to play one of the Akpabio tournaments. One of the games I was going to play, Wellington came to sit down next to me and was just watching me play. He was just absorbing everything. It was as if he was preparing himself to become a World Scrabble champion. And I knew that with that dedication and with that studious attitude and the fact that he was willing to learn from a broad variety of players.
Just 5 years later, Wellington represented his country at the World Championship for the first time. Away from the board, Wellington is rarely seen without his million-watt smile, but over the board, he's completely locked in. Sporting his trademark fedora, he made an immediate impression, stunning the Scrabble world by coming in 3rd overall in just his 2nd ever international event, narrowly missing the finals and a chance to face off against eventual champion Nigel Richards.
This particular story I am actually very proud of. As at that point in time, I was just an upcoming player in the Nigerian Scrabble scene, even making some headlines by qualifying in the first place. I told myself that I wasn't going to follow the the general mindset of going to participate. As audacious as it seems, I actually aspired to win that particular world championship. So I went there, I gave my very best, and it happened that I really actually gave a very good account of myself. So that was the eye-opener for Nigerian Scrabble. And on a personal level, I told myself that I wasn't going to rest until I win the world championship.
Now convinced of his championship potential, Wellington went into the 2009 Worlds in Malaysia with 2 additional years of dedicated preparation, but he encountered an unexpected setback.
After my experience in 2007, I got fired up. I actually really prepared very hard. On day one, I won all my games. I was on perfect score, 8/8. Okay, this is a good start. Let's get going. But it so happens that from that particular point in time till the expiration of my stay in Malaysia for the whole entire World Championship, I couldn't sleep. So maybe it was jet lag, maybe it was apprehension, maybe it was whatever. I found myself playing suboptimally in some games where I could have done better.
That experience inspired Wellington to train differently than ever before, learning to play under extreme conditions so that the effects of fatigue would barely register.
So I told myself that, okay, if this was going to be an issue, I have to do something about it. So in preparing for the World Championship in 2015, one of the key things I did to really kind of simulate those kind of circumstances, I'm an avid chess player also. So what I did was I'll play chess for like 24 hours to wear down the brain, and I'll switch to practicing Scrabble.
In 2015, that preparation paid off. In the finals match, despite grueling travel across the globe and having already played 32 hard-fought games, he was able to push through that fatigue and play his absolute best. It was an astounding performance, and while Wellington deservingly got the headlines, 2015 also marked the first year that the Nigerian team surpassed the United States in overall event performance at the World Championship. That was a big deal since the US has historically been the world's Scrabble powerhouse. 23 years ago at the 2001 championship, the winner was an American, and 11 Americans finished in the top 40. By contrast, only one Nigerian player recorded a top 40 finish. Fast forward to 2019 in India, when 3 Americans finished in the top 40 along with 10 Nigerians. Wellington's victory has been the single biggest reason for that progress. But it could have happened even earlier. Not only was he incredibly close to winning in 2007 on his very first try, another Nigerian Scrabble legend almost beat him to it.
Sammy was it.
Yeah, I mean, when I started playing tournament Scrabble, Sammy was the best player in Nigeria, right? Sammy to us was like Nigel Richards. You go to a tournament and you're gazing at him and you're looking at him and like, hey, because he's won the most tournaments in Nigeria during that era. Sammy was just impossible to play.
Sammy was more than an inspiration to those of us who came into Scrabble at the time that I did.
He now started winning everything. It was just like Nigel Richards at that time. Everybody comes in saying who is going to be second, because we already know that Sammy was going to be first.
Sammy Okosagah was the dominant force in Nigerian Scrabble in the 90s, maintaining the top overall ranking for several years running and winning countless regional and national events. He's a cool customer, both on and off the board, known for his tactical mastery, dictionary command, and unflappable demeanor. The computerized word study tools top players use today didn't exist during his heyday, making Sammy's prodigious word knowledge all the more impressive.
But now these kids have Ziva, they have Quackle. All those didn't exist at the time. The best we had at that time was a little device called Franklin.
Yes, I remember it, yes.
Yeah.
We had a 4-hour trip, and somebody said, this Sammy that you all talk about, like he knows all the words. Let's do something. Let's quiz him on Scrabble throughout this trip, and let's see what he knows and what he doesn't know. I said, I'm game. Let's put some money on it. I'll get every word you ask me. And they did an open book, and they asked me questions like quizzes throughout the entire journey. I did not miss one. That was how bad it was. That was an era where there was no social media, there was no internet. I mean, I could know a word that everybody in the Scrabble Hall, they've never seen before. Because I go through the 1,000 pages to find all the words. I spend 3 hours every day in this dictionary. I am not telling you anything. If I play, you check it.
After moving to the United States in the late 90s, Sammy switched to the North American lexicon, but keeping 2 lexicons straight was a frustrating handicap, so he wound up playing only a handful of events each year. A decade passed, and Sammy considered his best Scrabble days to be behind him.
My best years in Scrabble was in the 90s. I thought I could beat anyone. I thought I was invincible and all that stuff. So at this point, I didn't feel like playing Scrabble. That's why I only played the nationals. I wouldn't go anywhere else. I never felt like I gave my all to it.
But after friends invited him back to Nigeria to participate in the prestigious Godswill Akpabio Classics, he surprised himself by winning the event twice, first in 2011 and a second time in 2013, against the likes of former world champions Nigel Richards and Pakorn Namit Mansuk. That inspired him to make one last serious run at the championship that year.
Coming from winning the 2 tournaments in Nigeria, I said, okay, this might be a good time for me to just unleash, because I've never played where I just play everything. It's always just American or just British. So this is my opportunity to just dig deep, think back. I still can play. Let me try and see if I can play the World Championships and see what I could do. So I'm going to study callings one more time and just call it quits.
There was only one problem. Sammy didn't have a team. With the Nigerian team's travel status still in limbo that year and the US team's slots already filled, Sammy would have to travel to Prague and win a spot on site in the 8-game Last Chance Qualifier, or LCQ, the day before the event. Few would dare attempt such an uncertain trip, but Sammy was confident.
I knew that the top players going in, I couldn't say any of them was better than me, but I could say I knew as much words as anybody else. And when you go into battle with the right weaponry and everything, I mean, you almost feel invisible.
40 players were vying for just 4 spots in the championship event, with the rest relegated to a side event. Even with players like former world champion Mark Nyman and all-time scoring record holder To Wei Bin in the LCQ field, Sammy squeaked through with one of the top 4 spots, earning himself a spot in the main event. And boy, did he ever make the most of it. In one of the strongest championship fields ever assembled, featuring players who have now won a combined 12 world championships, Sammy won the entire main event in dominating fashion, finishing with 22 wins in 31 games and the best cumulative margin of victory, which serves as a tiebreaker. In some years, this would have immediately made Sammy the world champion. But in 2013, the main event was followed by a playoff bracket for the top 4. Frustratingly to many, the first bracket round was a best-of-3 match, an incredibly small sample size in Scrabble, especially after such a grueling main event. Paired up with Thai Grandmaster Goman in the first round, Sammy dropped the first game, and after rebounding in Game 2 with a 500-point score, including the game-winning move of Farsides, he quickly found himself down 100 in Game 3. Unable to claw his way back, just like that, his championship run was over.
We still wished him the best. We still shared him on. Back here in Nigeria, we are a very religious people, and people can actually be praying seriously. So we have vigils for someone to do well and to bring it home and all that.
For me, when you play, and not because I came in first, I think the tournament should end. If you do a round robin of 40 games and somebody comes in first, the tournament should end right there, because that's all the work that needs to be done. I don't see why 2 people should now go lock horns and play best of 3. I mean, we play the game. We know anything can happen. And I'm saying this without any fear or anything. I thought it would only be fair for me to be the first African to win the World Scrabble Championships. No shade on Jigeri. I love him like a younger brother. To come that close is really disappointing.
Though it ended in disappointment, I still consider Sammy's performance in the main event that year as a last chance qualifier one of the most impressive feats I've ever witnessed in Scrabble. So, perhaps you're asking, how did Wellington and the rest of the Nigerian team perform that year? They weren't there. Nor were they there at the previous championship in 2011. Every country has a predetermined number of slots at the World Championship based on factors like previous year's performance and overall attendance. Looking at the World Scrabble Championships dating back to 1999, the size of the United States team has been remarkably consistent, with a full contingent of 15 players attending Worlds nearly every year. The Nigerian team, by contrast, has had much lower participation. They've had fewer slots allocated to them, but they've also had several years where the entire team's travel visa applications were denied. Sometimes the Nigerian team was only able to attend thanks to extreme persistence on the part of leaders like Nigerian Scrabble Federation President Toke Aka.
Even when we went to UK, in 2005, we were refused visas. I had to go to the press. I made a lot of noise. By them not issuing us visas meant they were disenfranchising us. So when I made so much noise that way in the press, they now called us back for another interview and issued the visas.
I remember when we were refused visas to come to London. These authorities, as they were going to grant these visas, they actually don't know anything about Scrabble. They don't see Scrabble beyond something that's just being played, during a picnic or on a special holiday.
1991, we went to try and get visas. They didn't give us the visas. We tried 1993. They didn't give us visas. It's hard to understand this when you are from the United States or live in the United States, or you're from London living in, Britain and stuff like that.
Even in their breakthrough year of 2015, Wellington and the rest of the Nigerian team almost didn't make it to Perth to compete at all.
In a build-up to the 2015 World Championship, the visas didn't come on time. Initially, the visa applications for the entire team was denied.
Australia, they did not have a visa issuing office in Nigeria then. The applications are sent to Pretoria in South Africa. That was where Australia had an office. I got the Nigerian ambassador, who was in South Africa, to speak with a colleague, the Australian ambassador in South Africa. They grudgingly gave them the visas to come to Australia.
I can remember vividly, it was an afternoon that we got the call that the visas have been issued. And if we were to make it to Australia, we have to be in Lagos by the next morning. We left almost immediately. We got the call. We arrived Lagos via a night bus. We went straight to the airport. We got to Malaysia. Another complication came into the equation. We discovered that we had to join Air Australia. We are going to be able to join that in Terminal B. We got into Terminal A. So it happens that you needed a Malaysian visa to move from Terminal A to Terminal B. I think it delayed us by almost 24 hours again. We were just at the airport waiting for the next scheduled flight to go to Perth. And then we arrived Perth roughly 12 hours thereabout before the tournament was to kick off. And of course, the way they say it, the rest is history.
Facing such grueling and stressful travel, Wellington's victory and the performance of the Nigerian team in 2015 becomes even more impressive. But it also becomes more meaningful for Nigerian Scrabble as a whole. In recent years, the Nigerian team has benefited from much greater awareness of their Scrabble accomplishments, finding it easier to get their visa applications approved.
We are beginning to be known all over the world as a top Scrabble playing nation. So these days, when we walk into embassies to request for visas, they take us seriously.
Today, the Nigerian contingents now rival or exceed the size and strength of the United States or any other nation.
When you were reading the Nigerian numbers, it always said 13300. The first time it became 6, that's when Nigeria won the World Scrabble Championships. So that should tell the world something.
The increasing success of Nigeria on the world stage has inspired many people, including mainstream journalists, to examine the secret to their success. Perhaps the biggest reason is that for Nigerians, Scrabble is, quite literally, a sport. Nigeria is unique among Scrabble-playing nations in that Scrabble is officially designated as a sport by the Nigerian government. As the story goes, a retired general named Gold Eburu was instrumental in popularizing Scrabble in the 80s, and in the 90s he was able to successfully lobby for the game to receive the same sporting designation as chess.
When the Scrabble Association of Nigeria was formed, General Gold Eburu became the first president. And so our intention was, hey, government already has recognized sporting associations and they fund them. So if we get them to recognize Scrabble, they will start funding Scrabble. It got them to recognize it and to start employing people to work, for Scrabble. It was under the leadership of General Eburu.
NSF President Toke Aka walked me through some of the organization of the Nigerian Scrabble board and the support that Nigerian players receive. Scrabble is actually taught in schools across the country, and seasoned tournament players hold salaried positions as coaches. Top players have overseas travel subsidized, with the expectation that a portion of their winnings will be used to reimburse those expenses.
I wish I could sell our administrative process to the rest of the Scrabble world. There's nowhere else in the world that this kind of structure for Scrabble administration exists. Nowhere else.
But something I discovered in talking to many Nigerian players is that Scrabble's status as a sport goes far beyond the government's official designation. It's a mindset towards the game that many Nigerian players share.
Those of us who play Scrabble at the very top, we can testify to the fact that Scrabble is indeed a sport. Most people feel that games like Scrabble and chess do not require you to be physically fit. But for those of us who play it, we know otherwise.
We look, in Nigeria especially, at Scrabble like a sport.
So we'll play for days, non-stop, 3 days non-stop.
It's a shame that most of the rest of the world do not see it that way.
This attitude is also reflected in the classic Nigerian style of Scrabble play. Veteran players told me that the Nigerian style is considered to be highly defensive, prioritizing denying opportunities to the opponent over playing flashy words.
The Nigerian, though he trusts his knowledge, he wants to secure that win first. So he will take the lead and he will become defensive. It's not going to spread out the board and take a score of 51. If he can take 39 and keep the board closed and keep his lead.
Almost 95% of Nigerian players are defensive-minded.
In fact, one Wall Street Journal article went so far as to suggest that Nigerian players had revolutionized the game by playing shorter words at the expense of 7- and 8-letter words, which earn an extra 50 bonus points when played, but may also open the board for the opponent. This sounds like a fantastic story, except it's not true. I've had the privilege of remotely broadcasting many live streaming events based in Nigeria, and the word knowledge on display is as good as it gets. One player I had never even heard of at the time, Tega Okiemute, was dropping crazy bingos like Zoospore with a blank Z and up values from otherwise terrible tiles. He's now ranked number 34 in the world. Wellington once played one of the craziest long words I've ever seen, a fixable across 2 double word scores for 178 points.
People that wrote the article actually, probably got it wrong, because top Nigerian players are as good as anybody, when it comes to 2 to 8.
Over time, the accepted wisdom that Nigerians play a defensive brand of Scrabble has changed, and once again, Wellington was a key factor. He considers himself to be a player that has no style. Having now played many games against him myself, I can attest that he shifts seamlessly from aggressive attacking Scrabble to the more traditional defensive approach in his games, all while playing at lightning speed. And Scrabble in Nigeria is evolving even further with the next generation of players, including 2 rising superstars who are poised to take the game to even greater heights. 28-year-old Enoch Nwale and 24-year-old Timilehin Doko are the top 2 Nigerian players in the world rankings today. Both combine incredible word knowledge with a more open, aggressive style of play than their predecessors.
Starting out, I'm not usually very cagey. I like taking my chances. I like playing offensive. I like being aggressive on the board.
I would describe myself as a very offensive player, actually.
Wellington plays both the cagey style and he plays the more open style. And I think that's the kind of player I am.
I think there is a very heavy emphasis on defense. However, I don't think we have the monopoly on defense.
Enoch and Timmy have been neck and neck in the overall rankings for several years, and with rare exception, the two grandmasters have taken down almost every major Nigerian or African event in the last few years. This summer, they squared off in a 21-game exhibition match, with Enoch emerging as the winner by, of course, an 11-10 final score. The two players' scoring averages in the match, 431.7 to 431.8. Veteran Nigerian players are unanimous in their praise for the two young superstars, including Sammy and Wellington.
Even as we speak right now, I don't even think Jigere is the best Scrabble player in Nigeria. He's going to tell you the same thing.
There are a lot of youngsters in Nigeria here who have picked up the torch. Enoch and Doko, who are frankly the leaders of that gang.
The kids are coming through, and they're coming through better than we were when we came through.
On the other hand, both Enoch and Timmy credit Wellington as a major inspiration for their rise.
Wellington winning the World Championship kind of opened my view that, okay, this game is global.
Wellington is a player I have a lot of respect for. He has taken a very mentoring role for those of us like myself and who are starting to make good progress in the scene.
He always says success is not complete if you don't have successors. He always looks out for us, especially in tournaments.
At the outset of my career, I would notice that he was coming in first or second at almost every tournament. I'd be like, there's something insane about this kind of consistent, top performance. So that was something I told myself back then that I would like to emulate.
Unfortunately, at the most recent World Championship, Timmy endured an all too familiar rite of passage when his visa application to the United States was rejected. For reasons that remain unclear, he was the only player from the Nigerian team to be denied. And while that represents great progress overall, many players were upset by the news, believing that Timmy had a legitimate chance to win now.
He has everything that it takes. I'm sure he must have been devastated because he was the only person that was refused for whatever reason. But he was ready mentally, emotionally, he was ready.
That did hurt us too. I made a spirited effort to see that I got the visa, but for whatever reasons, they just denied him the visa. You look at those things as probably fate. His time is going to come sometime in the future. That's my belief.
For his part, Timmy took the setback in stride with maturity far beyond his years.
I admit I was devastated when it happened, especially because going to the World Championship was all I could think of from the moment we concluded the qualifiers in February. But yeah, I think it's not a new thing because I recall being told about the 2015 Westpac Championships. So it's nothing new. It's a problem that players from this part of the world have faced for a long time.
At the recently concluded African Scrabble Championship, Timmy was in superb form, clinching victory in his round 31 game against another fast-rising youngster in Abdul Mumin Jimo. Anyone expecting to see short words was sorely disappointed. With Wellington Jigere himself watching as the live streaming commentator, Timmy played an onslaught of long words in the early going, capped off by his 167-point triple-triple of D Brides to seize command of the game. With his 569 to 422 win, he clinched his first of what will likely be many African Scrabble Championship titles.
Flawless last game from Doko, I must say.
He is clearly ready to win a world championship, if only he can make it there. Fortunately, the next World Championship location in 2025, as chosen by the Scrabble governing body WESPA, will be Ghana. With a bid backed by Mind Games Incorporated, the tournament organization founded by top Nigerian expert Lukman Owolabi, as well as the Pan-African Scrabble Association, chaired by veteran player Ade Adegbesan, the selection of Ghana as the championship site will allow much easier participation, not only for Nigerian players, but other African nations as well.
We just want to host the world. We just want to show the world what we do. We've really, really worked hard. Ghana will put up a tournament. It will be the best Westpac ever.
The African countries will be able to send their full representatives. And that is the one place where, not even Nigeria, where Africa as a whole can show how strong it is. I believe it's going to be one of the most keenly contested tournaments.
With huge participation from across Africa, winning the 2025 championship will be an extremely difficult task. World champion Wellington is still at the top of his game, as evidenced by his resounding victory at multiple huge events in North America in the last few years. Emerging superstars like Enoch and Timmy are more than ready to make their mark, with an unprecedented number of top expert players lined up behind them. And nobody should be surprised if legends like Sammy find their way to the top once again.
Anytime the person sitting across you is a Nigerian, just know that you're in for a dogfight.
I love Scrabble, Will. I love Scrabble.
When the Scrabble bug catches you, you want to play everywhere.
Nigerian Scrabble has never been stronger. Now it's up to the rest of the world to try and catch up.